Alistair Love, Joe Maldonado.
Here.
Okay. Mr. Chairman, well, we don't have a quorum, but as you indicated, we can go ahead and follow with the presentations, and there's no action to be taken on.
Okay, very good. Well, with that, we'll start the presentation by, we have Mr. Bill Steen and Mr. Jose Ceballos. Rosita, thank you so much for being also here with the city. And I don't know what y'all are with, Carlos, I mean, I know you're with a Palafox group, right? The FAST.
Can I circulate just a fact sheet?
Yeah, sure.
You're good, John.
Bill, did you want to open up, or?
Yeah, I'll get started. Thanks a lot, John, for letting us meet. Enjoyed talking to you and Fred the other day. And, you know, basically, what the purpose of our presence here and our presentation is just to bring you up to date on our efforts to develop this conference center next to the La Posada Hotel on Zaragoza in downtown Laredo. And I'm glad Rosita's here. You know, we've been working hand in hand with the city on this this important proposed development. We're supposed to talk just once a week, but for some reason we talk more than once a week.
We talk a lot,
Except for what I missed the call last week. But anyway, again, the purpose of the meeting is just to give you an update on the facts of where we are. As you probably know, the council voted unanimously to put a proposition on the ballot for November the 6th, Proposition B, which is to increase the hotel motel tax by 2% and the car rental tax by I think it's 5%. And that's one of the multiple sources of financing for the development. And I'm going to let Jose kind of take you through a brief PowerPoint presentation. We've provided you all with a two-page fact sheet with some good information on the overall development. And after Jose gets through, we'll be happy to take any questions that you might have.
Thanks, Bill.
Okay.
Thanks, John, for hosting us again. I think a few of you might be familiar with some of the slides you're going to see. They haven't really changed in terms of the concept, but in general, Bill spoke to the public-private partnership. We think the facility is in once you get into schematic design will be in between 48,000 and 56,000 square feet of function space. It's almost a one-to-one split when you talk about function space and pre-function and service space. So when you're thinking about what does that mean per square footage wise, just keep that in mind when we say function space. Just add another one-to-one ratio for support space and pre-function space. The center will be available both for guests, for tourists and conference activities, but as well it will be it will serve a much-needed venue for local events and for the purposes of informing the public. That's an extremely important piece for folks to understand that it is in many respects our replacement to the Civic Center. So it's an important piece that I think everybody needs to be aware of and be cognizant of. The site, and you saw it on the original slide. The new facilities wrap around two historical buildings, which are Casa Ortiz and the 907 property, which is that kind of that green, bluish green colored home, has a great balcony perspective. Suits right, fits right into what's across the street, the cathedral and the historical piece of being near the Rio Grande and other amenities around the plaza and La Posada and that. the conceptual site plan, and there's been a variety of iterations. This is the latest one. Everything is centered around the space between Bridge 1 and 2. And the area that we are in negotiations with GSA with is that particular space that you see north of the flyover and in between Bridge 1 and 2. It's approximately 7.38 acres altogether. This has been a piece that's been very intensive in terms of both work and laying it out, but also from the city and from the private side, from the Baskin side, being engaged both with CBP, their needs, and assuring that their missions are met, and also that we're able to secure the property for purposes of the conference center. So if you look in terms of where this at, you can align yourself with the back end of La Posada, and it kind of gives you what that flyover of that new building will be, which is in that reddish color. As you can see, right north of that view is where you see the 907 and
Is it gonna be, of that parking lot's gonna have a slope, is it gonna be?
No, it will not have a slope. It will have maybe a 2% slope, which is, what you find in most spaces. We find
It should be, from a slope standpoint, John, ADA
Yeah.
compliant, at least a major portion of it.
So John, the bottom line, the yellow line, the property line, is actually, there's a retaining wall that will get added based on this option here. And that will give us the elevation that we need. And on near Bridge 1, which is on our left here, that's actually the existing elevation, thank you, the red button. This is existing elevation. We're only doing an overlay of asphalt. But as we get to here, it'll be an addition of a retaining wall that will carry us all the way through. And we're providing a secured parking, which has been requested by CBP here, 50 spaces here with a gated entry. And then we're also doing a gated entry, private secured parking for them as well.
We're offering.
Yeah, exactly. We're at the point of offering, thank you, Blasita. At the point of offering, hopefully.
We've made offers, we don't have an acceptance yet, let me put it that way.
Now, as far as there was a flood,
2010.
2010,
That's the
right?
last major one.
So, at the levels that the river got up to, will any of that be impacted, or how much of it will be
That's a
impacted?
great question.
Yes, very good question.
The facilities, all these, and thanks for this, Martin.
Pointer.
The pointer. These are all at street level.
Right.
So all these functional space are actually at the Zaragoza level. So the 100-year floodplain kind of does this, right at the edge of these buildings. The 500-year reaches at top.
So back to Blasita's point, in 2010, all of that parking lot was underwater.
Yeah. The last flood we had was in the fall, 22 feet or 21 feet. It reaches this line right here. It doesn't quite go over the fence that's currently in place right here. And that just runs this way, and then right here it slopes.
So the retaining wall would then not allow the water, or it would still get in?
What it would do, John, it would raise some of the parking, so more of that area would not be impacted like the flood Jose alluded
Right.
to. But if you've got a major
Yeah.
98 or 2010, it's gonna flood the entire parking lot. But as we know, you get pretty good warning system.
Right.
Now, National Weather Service has got stream monitors all up and down the Rio Grande and the other tributaries, and they can probably as much as give you 24 hours advance notice.
Just my understanding of this design is that everything underneath the red part is parking.
Well, it's
Or
some delivery for
It's
trucks.
loading
It's
docks.
loading
Yeah,
dock.
well, I guess what I meant is nothing that would be
Inhabitable.
functional space. or
Exactly,
habitable.
correct, that's
Where is
right.
the street that goes to the mall from there? Right below the yellow line? Oh,
You can see the shadow,
You see
Lupita.
this?
I see it,
The one
okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But so is that gonna get moved?
No,
No.
we're under it. We're under it.
Oh, we're
We're
under
underneath
it.
it, yeah.
We're under,
Yeah.
okay.
If you remember, it's like that ramp. that's
See.
going down. Okay.
You're gonna hear people complain. Most likely.
How far away are we from
The retaining wall, how
GSA.
high do they want to put it?
We
GSA,
have those specifications.
CBP is
on
right
it.
here, this blue building.
I know, but how far away are we from, you're saying GSA, just saying, do you
Oh.
know?
We have a meeting with GSA next Friday. So we're going to establish, we've been working with them for at least a year, probably more, right, Bill? You started?
More than a year.
Yeah. So we're right knee deep in those negotiations. All right. This kind of gives you an aerial of massing, kind of to Joe's point about what's under it. We've got, obviously, regulatory agencies that will pretty much dictate what you can do at a floodplain level. And we've got, consultants that we're working with to assure that we're in conformance with what could be approved. But essentially, you've got a 21-6 ballroom at this point with 6 meeting rooms, and I think this image actually has 5, but we've upped it to 6. 21,600 square foot, which is column-free ballroom. This area here is your pre-function space corridor. It's all air conditioned. We've got 2 smaller boardrooms here. We've got 907, Gas Ortiz, and then the central courtyard that opens up. And we're still working through, we're not in schematic design yet, we're still in conceptual, but these connections back to the street.
plaza.
Yeah, we're still working on those to define those, but this kind of gives you a layout of where overall the design would look like in concept.
So compared to the Civic Center, I know that was bought by LISD, but how many square feet are in that space?
It's 22,000.
With all their
But
support
it's,
space.
but that includes some of the storage that they've got, et cetera, and restrooms. The restrooms here are in some of those, they're not in that main space. So it will hold probably seated a couple hundred more people, 150 more than the existing Civic Center. And that was something that we've worked on back and forth with our design.
Will this be able to be expanded if it really gets going?
It could be expanded. If it does, you could come more out this way. And what we've talked about doing, if we have to do that, you'd have to go to structured parking. And that's something that we just have to work our way through. This whole area is not only GSA and Customs and Border Protection, but it's also under the purview of the International Boundary and Water Commission. So you've got to take that into account when you design anything in that basin, if you will, that will impact the flow of water. So we have to go through that process also.
And we've got an analysis completed pretty much on
What we have now.
This is a little bit more of the same in terms of the spaces. Once you get into schematic design, everything gets better defined in terms of final spacing, but this is what we have at present. Gas Ortiz, most of the space in Gas Ortiz will just be special event type space. And where we'll work through with the city to figure out what the final use for that will be. The De La Garza home, or the 907 property, really doesn't require as much renovation, is in relatively good shape. It's really more a matter of just identifying the best use for that space. And like I said, it doesn't require much work, as much as Gas Ortiz requires a bit more. Latest audio visual, obviously, what you would expect. And then, of course, we've got a outdoor catering capability with the kitchen that's on site. In terms of financing, what's bold is really the main thrust of what we wanted to share with you. City of Laredo's anticipated commitment is in that range of 31 to 33 million, and that is specifically for new facilities, improvements for public parking in the riverfront, which we looked at, and the restoration of the 2 homes that need a little bit of work. Palafox's commitment at this point that's anticipated is 17.4. The San Agustin Ballroom, which all of us know, that would get conveyed to the city. All soft costs associated with the project, including architectural engineering costs, site work related in terms of environmental studies and all that. Most of those have been completed. In fact, all of environmental studies are completed. Any upgrades to the hotel, in fact, the upgrades are significant in terms of $7 million. That would be, that would give us some renovations and upgrades to the hotel. And those are associated with the hotel becoming a flag hotel under a Hilton line, and still keeping the La Posada name, but now adding that network to the hotel should generate an output in terms of hotel nights and reservations. Did you want to add something?
No, I'm fine, right now.
I know you had mentioned something about the state tax, maybe proposing that to, instead of paying the state.
Well, Blasita was very helpful. We went to the state legislature last session. So the La Posadas generates hotel motel tax. So the state portion of the hotel motel tax generated by La Posada, which is 6%, that's what goes to the state, would actually stay with
It would be
Laredo,
rebated
stay
back to
with the city for a 10-year period to help provide another source of the financing for this development.
And how much, so out of the 50.7 million, how much do you project for that state tax to be? And I don't know if it's in the figure.
It's not
it's
configured
not.
into that 50
It's
million.
not a lot of money,
And
John.
I'll tell you the reason it's not configured in there is because it's a 10-year period. Any bonds would be for a much longer period of time, so
Right.
we can't put it into that financing mechanism. And then the amount is supposed to be used towards the project, and we have flexibility how we can use it towards the project. So we're thinking perhaps it would be operational use
Okay.
and not necessarily
And that's seven.
the
I got you.
repayment of bonds.
Instead of for debt
This is
service, it
capital,
would go
yeah.
for.
Right, our projections are 75 to 100,000 a year, maybe more, but Blasita's right, that could be used
Okay.
for.
Renewal replacement fund is an example.
Right,
Right.
it could be used to incentivize groups to use the facility. There's a
Okay.
lot of different ways.
So it wouldn't go to the debt service, it would be used for.
There is a small problem with La Posada. I have a friend from Houston that stays there all the time when he's paying for it himself. He works for a corporation, they tried to book it. They said, oh no, that's too dangerous. That needs to be taken care of. Travel people.
We work on that, Fred, all the time.
That was told to me last week. He stayed at the embassy, and he likes going downtown. He likes the tap room.
But I think part of that
Corporate
would
is
be-
doing that? You're saying corporate or
A
you're?
corporate travel agency, yeah.
Okay.
And-
When he comes down by himself on his own nickel, his own credit card, he stays at La Posada. He came corporately, he works for Batesville Gas Company, so.
Joe, did you want to comment?
Well, I was going to say a couple things. First is, I think part of that will be resolved with the affiliation with Hilton, because you won't have the local hotel, sort of standalone hotel, having to deal with those kinds of rumors, because that's what
Yeah,
they are,
that's
rumors.
terrible.
And then two, there's, at least from my experience, other than personal anecdotes, the people just generally have incorrect views about anywhere in Laredo. And I don't know that there's much more we can do other than show them when they come here.
Just inform them.
Yeah.
Well, it's also the stigma, we're the only border town that has the same name, you know, so unfortunately,
But
if something happens to Laredo, Laredo,
It's
unfortunately.
Laredo.
people don't know. I talked to lawyers from Dallas, they're like, well, I'm not going to take a deposition in Laredo. I was like, fine, then you're not taking the deposition of my guy. I mean, that's just kind of how this works. I live here, you come down here, or...
What you ought to tell them is, have you compared the FBI statistics?
I don't, they don't listen, it's all stories, and, you know, you can give them as much, you can give people as many facts as you have,
So,
but if they don't listen, then they just don't
Yeah.
listen.
There's somebody
You
that's-
said that, yes, you say the operational cost would be about 100,000? No.
No.
I heard 100,000.
It's
There
It's
would
a
be,
rebate program through the
Oh,
state
okay.
of Texas.
Okay.
And you have to go petition to have part of the tax code changed.
Okay.
And Laredo was listed as something called, so if you go to look for it, you're gonna look for eligible central municipality in the tax code. And that listing now includes Laredo. There's several other Texas cities on that list. And this project is the one we designated to qualify for a rebate of state hotel occupancy tax,
Okay.
sales tax, and alcohol and beverage tax. But it's everything that's generated only at this project. It's not the entire city
Right.
or
Okay. And
anything like
do we have an estimate for operational cost?
We do.
No. Well,
Oh, yeah, we
our
have
partner
project, yeah, we
does.
do,
Yes,
we
yes.
we have financial projections for the
And that
for
would
the
be how
facility.
much?
I think I have, I
We
might have it.
think
as
we
a
have
trailer.
that, we'll get to that,
Oh,
we'll
okay.
get to that slide and
I
answer
have it
that
as a
question.
trailer because I thought that might come up, and we'll show
Okay.
you that, the
Okay.
projection.
Sorry, go.
So, I mean, I want to go.
That's a
just-
good question, though,
Yes,
Lapita.
quickly on this racing of, Proposition B. Ultimately, we're looking at racing from 12.1 to 18, hopefully from that proposition passage. And again, it goes right back to a public facility. And that's very important. None of these funds are being used in Fasken or Palafox properties, right? So just so everybody's, for clarity there. It's and in terms of feasibility, basically the Palafox, we've invested over $1 million now during this feasibility period. We're working to a project agreement, which we hope to arrive at soon with the city. But essentially, that's where we are in terms of our studies and consulting efforts and planning efforts. Along with that, we anticipate the value of the donation, both for the 907 property and the Zaragoza Ballroom 919, to be about $2.93 million. It's kind of interesting, even though we're working on this day to day, sometimes, at least I forget, that the Zaragoza Ballroom will not be there for La Posada, in terms of its asset, right? It becomes a public asset in its new form in a new facility, so.
Is that part of the 17?
Yeah, it's part of the
Yes, it's
17.
part of, it's a combination of actual out-of-pocket costs and land donation.
Economic impact data, which we know you'd be, very interested in knowing. And this is coming from HVS, our hospitality consultant and conference center consultant. He's expecting this project can generate up to $18 million in annual recurring economic impact. And I think I have a slide that kind of tells you what's direct and indirect. I think the majority, 11 million, is direct, and then the rest is either indirect or induced. Can host up to more than 650 events, attract 81,000 attendees based on his projections, 48,000 night visitors, and 157 permanent.
New permanent job.
Yeah, both either in the hotel or in the
Right.
conference facility.
Right.
Now, Jose.
This does not include construction jobs, by the way.
Which are all just at the beginning.
At the
for
beginning,
however long it takes. Is this a best case scenario, an average, et cetera, for the project?
This is a stabilized year scenario, which is three years.
3 years into it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, you put there 650 events, and I'm just saying there's 365 days in the year, so I guess you plan to have several events at one time.
John, what's interesting, I'll let Lucita and Jose chime in, I missed this part of the tour. We've been touring other facilities around the state, San Marcos, New Braunfels, Corpus, and down in McAllen. And some people were concerned, as we were, about how many events you could really generate. And some folks have looked at like the Corpus website and what events they've had and said, they're not doing but 3 or 4 events, this month or next month. But what they don't post on their website is what you all were told when you met with their staff at both McAllen and Corpus.
What they post is basically public events. They don't post conferences, weddings, social gatherings, smaller events. So when you look at that 650, That, it encompasses business meetings, it encompasses quinceañeras, it encompasses a conference, a larger, potentially larger convention. It's all integrated.
Yeah, I mean, that's just the Embassy Suites on steroids, right? I mean, it's not like they have one event for the 3 or 4 days.
And the way the city's designed, there are multiple rooms that can be used, so you could have 3 or 4 events happening all at the same time.
It's-
The ballroom can be divided up into smaller rooms. The other conference rooms can either be a big room or they can be divided up into 6 rooms. So ideally, you'd hope you'd have multiple events happening. And even at the hotel today, there can be a group upstairs doing a deposition, and a lot of them happen, and in the Philip V room, somebody could be having a birthday party at the same time.
Yeah, no, I'm not aware of that number.
Yeah, and, I mean, I don't know if everybody's aware, but the old Civic Center will be demolished. Like, that facility
It's
is,
no longer going to be.
so it becomes an administrative building in that location with a performing arts and a couple of meeting rooms that are there. So I think, in general, like, when we think about where do we host civic events or local gatherings, this is gonna be it really for the size that the old Civic Center used to be able to hold. I think that's what we're looking at. So I pulled just a few questions that I thought were central to the conversation for this meeting. And you have that in the fact sheet, and the fact sheet's loaded up to our the conference center website. Well, the project cost taxes to go up. I mean, unless you decide to go sleep at La Posada Hotel one day, and you might end up paying $1.70 more for that night, but beyond that, the average person's not in Laredo is not going to see any sort of impact with the passage of Proposition B. I think it's how the market pays for these kinds of venues in Texas and other places, and it's a good way to do it because you're not burdening your local taxpayer. That's my personal opinion on how I see that. I wrote in a sentence that speaks to what Blasito was describing earlier at the end in terms of that eligible central municipality that will help sustain the center over those 10 years. Beyond that, I think we talked about that range of what we hope to raise using the finance structure resulting from that passage of those tax increments. Who will own the Laredo Conference Center? Again, this is to dispel, and the center is 100% publicly owned. It will belong to the city of Laredo. The improvements to the hotel obviously will belong to Fasken and Palafox. Just to clearly establish that, there's kind of 2 prongs right to this. There's the conference facilities, and then there's a hotel piece of it. Although they both complement each other, the conference center facilities, including the riverfront parking, will be a public asset. The riverfront parking will be free, available to anybody that's coming to the downtown that needs to get up to Zaragoza street level and do other things. That would be a benefit to everybody in that kind of layout. So there's not a projected fee for use for that parking lot.
And I think it's important to note that it's the city and the citizens of Laredo's conference center. If another hotel captures an event and needs to have it here, they can have it there. It's not exclusive to La Posada or Palafox. If somebody wants to have a wedding and they live, at this facility, they can have a wedding. It's just that it's the citizens' facility, it's a civic center, it's a conference center, and it'll be used for those kinds of events.
That'd be great. All the weddings from San Agustin Church can go to have their party there, and they can just walk. It was so easy, because my son just got married, and the church
Walking
was here,
distance
and
is good.
we just walked to the
That's what
rehearsal,
we
to
do.
the reception, so it was really good.
Now, can you have 2 weddings?
You could have 2 or 3 going on at the same time.
Depends on the size of the wedding, but yeah.
Depends on the size.
But you have the wall, the particular, I guess,
Yeah.
the sound.
Actually,
That's part of the plan. Mhm.
our latest kind of schematic is to divide that ballroom into 5 spaces if you needed to, or 2 larger ones with an entry corridor, so to kind of create more functionality from. Who will manage the operations again, we're working towards an agreement that has Palafox being the manager, but still, even there, the calendar is open to the community for the use of that facility, and that's how that's going to be treated. I think it also kind of puts skin in the game about building something that works for everybody, including the private partner, but also everybody else. So as opposed to, well, here it's built, you run it. It's kind of like allowing the private partner to see it through to success.
What needs to happen next?
We're going to get to that.
We're getting there.
We got a couple more slides. There it is. Okay, so.
Glad you asked, Fred.
Fred, we've got to
I'm
get.
69, I don't know how long I'm gonna be. I wanna see this done before I go.
You just turned 70.
We got to get the GSA transaction and that Riverside property, get that into certainty, finalize our agreement with the city, put that into, in writing in terms of final development agreement, get the passage of Proposition B. I mean, that's key. Continue on the more technical side, get from concept to more schematic design, start identifying textures, selection of materials, final spacing of all the rooms, and the final usage of all the different spaces. And then hopefully get to construction next year at some point in the spring. That's our ambitious timeline.
You all think it's achievable?
If we can get the first bullet squared away, and of course, Proposition B done, I think, yeah, it's attainable.
The retaining wall, what, is it gonna be concrete or?
It's concrete.
It's concrete, so they'll have no way to look out into the river or into.
Okay, let me go back to that image. Oh, I'm going forward here.
You're going to one of her questions.
Yeah, I've got more than
Financial projections.
Oh, okay.
Go to the next one, you probably, right there.
Okay, this is open view to the river right here. This
Okay.
will end up being glass, so you can, the only way we could fit that large ballroom, or at least one of the only ways is to create, this will be glass for the most part. So you will have a view probably from here all the way through when it's unoccupied that you could see through. But this for sure, there's this escalator down here brings you up. This is open area. You can see this way, you can see this way.
Okay.
And then there's access points to the hotel here, from the street here, from here, and then from here. I hope that answers your question. The retaining wall down there is concrete, but
It's concrete, yeah.
It's-
But it's at the
it's-
parking
it's-
level.
yes,
It's
exactly.
at the parking level,
Yes,
see.
yes.
It's
yeah, that's-
about
See.
How high is it?
14 feet.
Yeah, it says about, well, if you go down there's like 12 feet worth of a retaining wall right
Yeah,
now, like a
okay.
berm.
See.
We'll follow that same line. So to get to your operational question, and then we can take others from other, these are the demand estimate for the stabilized year. So you can look at, on your left, you see the types of events, and then the number of events. And our numbers, and Lasita, feel free to chime in, I think are on the conservative side. The ramp-up period will for sure tell us if we were too conservative, but I think our consultant is conservative on his numbers, particularly in these areas. There's not a lot of events if you consider what we could really drive and what we've had in the past. So that's kind of the projections in terms of events and attendance.
So if you were to, I mean, I know this is a conference center, not a convention center, but if you want to bring a convention, I mean, how big of a quote-unquote convention can you bring in? 500 people, 1,000?
You could bring in 1,000 to 1,500 if, we did a test fit for, and Blasita, you can tell me the name, the event you just recently had at the LEC,
Sister
the
Cities Festival?
Inter-Cities Festival, and you could get 110 booths in there for some kind of a more of a conference, a convention-related event, but, this just depends on what type of event it is, whether they need breakout rooms, or are they gonna be in a big auditorium?
We do have,
all the
still have a
time.
little bit of a difference of opinion on that. So I would say that our largest conference group would be about 800 delegates because of the number of breakouts that we have. Because you would still have to use the hotel space that's still in that main building, and you would have to use the 6 breakout rooms to accommodate the breakouts for 800 people. And then our room inventory is only still just over 200. That number doesn't change.
The hotel
So I
rooms.
don't believe that a
Unless you
planner,
get like a embassy or.
correct, we would have to do
You have to
overflow
do overflow at other
hotels
hotels.
in order to, and just really probably incentivize something as large as a 1,200 delegate conference. I don't believe we could go any larger than 800.
But
people.
comfortably 500,
I would say 600 to 800 comfortably.
yeah.
In the ballroom, do you have enough space for like show, like for, you know,
They're gonna have, stage for shows.
I think you mean exhibits.
exhibits?
Yes.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's all laid out on a 30-foot grid so that you can line up. If you've been to events where, you probably have, Fred, where you just wander around and they'll line up and you'll have back-to-back.
I know this for a
booths.
fact, the Texas Funeral Directors.
Don't know
would
if I
love to
understand
come
your
here.
question, though.
I think he's
There
talking
you go,
about
Russ.
the exhibit kiosk that
No,
go
the
are
Texas
lined up.
Funeral Directors, their favorite spot, at least the South Texas guys, were coming here and going to La Posada. I'm not active in the South Texas, but I know that the Texas Funeral Directors Association, they've been in Corpus, and how much bigger, how does this?
Corpus is
Corpus
huge.
Very
is quite
much
a
larger
bit larger
facility.
than this.
Okay, that's what, and you
And they
bring a
have
lot
a
of people.
campus that
that-
has exhibit halls, and we don't, this is not necessarily an exhibit hall,
Then you wouldn't be able to host it.
so.
Well, it's
Small ones.
designed, you could do a small one. It's designed, the big ballroom is designed to be flexible. If you wanted to do exhibits, you could. The electrical, et cetera, will be there to do
Yes.
that. But it's not a 100,000 square foot
No, I.
facility. Like
So I can
the
tell you,
Henry Lee
it'd be
Gonzalez
nice.
in San Antonio.
That'd be an easy, no, it's not the size of, no, I don't
No.
think they need
How many come in?
anything that long.
Well, so Fred, are you committing to get them to come once this is open?
We've hosted them a couple of times already in the last 6 to 8 years,
The,
the regional.
yes, well, the regional, we're having in South Pilot Island next week. And they come, but they don't have exhibits. Your state convention has exhibits. They're gonna put hearses on the floor, they're gonna have
Understood.
kiosks.
Right.
How big is that state convention?
You know, I haven't been in I'm so old, I don't travel very much,
It's just South Padre.
huh?
It's just South Padre.
South Padre, how many do you have?
Oh, that's just, the regional meeting is just a drink fest for guys to get away from home, so people don't know what drunkers are. And it's true. And they just have meetings, they just have one meeting, it's not a big deal.
I believe, though, the components of the way that this is being designed, let's just say we did want to have some sort of heavy machinery, or we wanted to have a car show, your courtyard can function in that way. We'd have to be very creative about it.
Well, I'm talking more about the kiosk, they could do that, that's
Sure,
not
sure.
a problem.
It's set up where, the main ballroom is set up where you could do the kiosk and you'd have basically the electric that you need to be able to
Yeah,
do
and-
that, that's in the floor.
Yeah,
Casket companies could set up, people don't like that.
Right.
Embalming fluid companies could, cremation companies could
all the
set up.
service providers, yeah.
Yes.
You know, that scares people, when we go to conventions like that.
It sounds about right.
They're dying to get to see.
Now, question, because you're looking, say, 15 years, 10 years down the road, and so you know what, we've outgrown the facility, can you go another floor on the actual?
The way we've currently got it designed, John, we're gonna go
South.
out over
You
the
would go out
parking.
as opposed to go.
Right, now it would be
Go
on
south.
piers, because we can't put a building down in the floodplain.
So you could probably double the size with parking?
We doubled the size, and we've also would have to add rooms to the hotel.
And the hotel, you could go,
We would go out, same thing,
Okay.
over, we'd add another section of rooms and go out on piers.
okay.
So water could run underneath it, and it wouldn't be in the floodplain.
What about parking? You have room to accommodate and you park?
Well, that's why I said if we do that, we're gonna have to do some structured parking, multi-level parking. In fact, one of the early iterations of this actually had the building built over a parking garage. But that gets expensive, because it
Yeah.
costs, in today's construction, anywhere from the high 18,000 to 25,000 a car for a structured parking garage.
Pretty proud.
This is a little bit of the performance
And I'm
projections.
sorry, I have one more question.
Sure.
Sometimes, like during Christmas, the traffic gets pretty clogged up. Is there a way, I'm just thinking of having like a designated, and I know this sounds kind of funky, but like a designated lane like on 35, sort of like you have on the, on
Across the
some of
bridge,
express-
like,
Well, like
Okay.
coming from 35, sometimes you might have a lot of traffic.
I mean, if there's a large event, you would probably, as the manager, we would probably hire some folks for traffic control to be able to do that. But if you look at when these events happen, and Blacita can chime in here, the holiday period, there's not a lot of this kind of conference activity, very little, if any.
The city would know this, and I don't know. Is it now Bridge 1 pretty much a local bridge and a pedestrian bridge, whereas Bridge 2 is,
No, it's still all mixed.
somewhat,
The only thing you don't have is commercial other than the buses, the passenger buses.
on Bridge 1?
No, Bridge 2 is exclusive to the passenger buses. So it's the only real difference, I guess is what I'm trying to say. Bridge 1 is pedestrian, Bridge 2 is not. And then the other big difference is the passenger buses that come across exclusively on Bridge 2.
Okay.
Yeah. So this, I thought I had the financial, but this is the attendee and day's performance, but I can share that with you after the meeting. We do have a performer that we can circulate. This is just some more overnight day trip visitors. I just didn't copy that particular slide, but we have that.
You knew that question would be asked.
Yeah.
We'll get it for you.
Yeah.
because just, I don't want another to get into something else that we're not able to cover its operational expense, and then the city's having to put money into it, and like, let's say, the other things that the city has gone into, and then we don't have the money. It doesn't generate enough income to cover its operational expenses.
That part of the
So this
numbers I
is-
know. When you said, what are the operating expenses, I had a little bit. The projections show that it will lose about $165,000 to $200,000 a year when it's stabilized.
Okay.
If you look at these facilities anywhere around the country, they don't make money.
Okay.
Where you make money is the economic impact of having the guests come, stay in the hotel rooms, go to restaurants, go shopping, hopefully at the outlet mall, whatever. But they don't make money. But our projections show about 165 to 200,000 a year in negative operations, not $500,000, $1 million numbers, nowhere near that. And with that state's portion or rebate would cover a good portion of that, if we decide to use it for that or use it for something else.
And
And the-
from
and-
what fund would the city be able to get the money to cover for that?
I don't know yet. We haven't gone down that road yet.
Okay.
And the other thing that we're going to do with this financing package, which I'm a big proponent of, I used to be a banker like John. And a lot of times when you finance a property, it's got a ramp-up period.
Right, yes.
In your initial financing package, you set aside an operating reserve
Yes.
to cover those negative cash flows until it gets to a stabilized. You also set aside or start a capital reserve fund so that you've got money that if the escalator needs to be replaced 10 years or the roof needs to be replaced 20
Yeah.
years later, that the money's there to be able to do that.
We don't have those financial projections from our financial analysts, though.
Okay.
Anything else?
Anything else?
That's at the end of the.
That's it, yeah, actually,
That's it.
these are kind of trailers that I always include.
I guess, the only other thing, I know that there's gonna be there's gonna be a proposition that's gonna be on November the 8th, and I think right now we don't have a quorum, but I would like to take a vote among the committee members if y'all feel comfortable, in favor of
Yeah.
of
It's
the
not rocket
proposition.
science.
And, make that part of our records, but unfortunately today, we didn't get a quorum. I mean,
You're gonna create jobs, you're gonna be,
Right, yes.
I mean,
No, I'm for it. I mean, we need it. We just have to make sure that, start working on it right away to where it can support itself without having to look for money
we
someplace
gotta get it
else.
started
Well,
before.
again, that's,
Right.
again, that's the point of this whole thing, right?
Yes.
It's not, it's not gonna support itself. We're-
For a while, see.
No, it's not. It's not gonna support itself. The impact
It's
is,
gonna generate from
well,
other.
it's gonna, yeah, it's gonna, you have to look at a broader picture.
Right.
You know,
that's
and
the-
we're trying to be realistic, and we're not going we scrub these numbers, and we've got a good consulting group, and we challenge them. You know, we're not here trying to sell pie in the sky. That's not the way Fasken does things, and we certainly want to make sure that this is successful for the people of Laredo. That's, and I get questions, well, what's in it for you? You guys didn't ask that, but I'll try to answer. You know, and as I've told other people, our goal is to get the La Posada Hotel where it will carry itself, where it will break even. Our projections going out 10 years indicate that with this facility, we will get to a break-even point. We don't get any return on or of the $17 million investment. Our goal is just to stabilize the operations of the hotel, and maybe someday, when you can go to Nuevo Laredo again, and that hotel can get to a 70% occupancy or better average, we might make some money.
But, and one thing that we've been talking about as a committee is, we've looked at It Street, we need to look at how as a city, how can we incentivize to get shops, to get restaurants, to get residential housing in the area. Like I mentioned last time, I went to Santa Fe. Santa Fe, it reminded me in a large part to Laredo, in the sense that you've got the plaza, you've got the church, you've got the flagship or the main hotel there, that's La Fonda. Here you got La Posada, but there you have the finished product, and you have a couple of blocks where it's all developed. They have restaurants, and I mean, it's very vibrant. It's y'all have been, I guess have y'all been to Santa Fe?
I've not been Santa.
It's just,
I was there last weekend.
but in other words,
It's really
you want to
special.
go downtown. It's like, you know what, let's go.
We gotta make it like that, I mean.
Yeah.
But part of that, and I don't mean to interrupt, I want to say, first of all,
Go ahead, sir.
I hope you know I'm 100% on y'all's side. And I also know
I appreciate it.
everything that Fasken has done in the past for the community. But a couple things. One, we as the Economic Development Advisory Council to the City of Laredo are a little limited in that we also need to somehow convince our compatriots in the private sector, like Fasken, to do the investment. We can do all we want as far as the city goes with what we have control over, like the roads, the infrastructure, et cetera. But if private individuals that aren't Fasken don't help in the development of downtown, then I don't know what more we can do. Part of our job is to convince our compatriots to go down there and do that.
And you know what, I invited like Larry Friedman, who he.
Oh, yeah, he's all over the place. Yeah, I know. I mean, I didn't mean like all over the place. I mean, he's everywhere. He's everywhere. He's all over the place and everywhere.
He represents the phalanx. The
Yeah.
phalanx have that, I guess it's at St. Augustine, that street that goes, they, across from the parking lot for the diocese, that big building there. So, in other words, on the other side of the plaza, they've got that property.
Yeah.
I invited, but they're out of town, Hank
Yeah.
Sames and Louis Romanos, who
I think
handles
Hank is
the.
up, I think Hank is pretty
the,
upset about it.
Siete
I
Banderas.
met with him a week ago.
No, but it's something, I want to invite them, and we need to talk, like here, it's not a, this is a meeting where we all, it's not a ego thing, it's sort of like, how can we all get together and make this better?
Well, yeah, I agree. And then that was.
But they were out of town, they couldn't make it, but I do want to, I'm going to invite them, because those people, you gotta give them credit that they put their money where their mouth is, sort of like y'all are doing.
Well, it goes back to Plan Viva Laredo, and you know what I'm talking about. So there's some people that own some downtown buildings, and this is an old story. Well, look, what they did in Austin, they took the downstairs and they made that retail, and then upstairs, they made condos. This guy says, "Are you crazy? You know how much money I'd have to spend that the city would require me to upgrade, I don't know what," and he says, "No." He said, "And if I did, then I have to pay more taxes." And now, right now, I use it as a storeroom. And that's some of the thought of the few guys that are still in business downtown. And with the city, all of us, we're the city, have to incentivize them, and they have the money, they can afford it. Very well afford it.
I mean, I think what Gary Jacobs did and what Hank did, I mean, some of those buildings are beautiful. What Mr. Jacobs did off of San Bernardo, I mean, that's I don't know if y'all ever been there inside, but
It's very nice, but
it's beautiful.
not only are we committed to this, but we're also committed to try to help stimulate the revitalization of downtown. And we're willing to take a leadership role in that area also. We're starting that process because the city's got plan after plan after plan, including the latest comprehensive plan about downtown, but what they need to have is an implementation plan.
Right.
Yeah.
To actually do something. So we're working with some consultants to provide a toolkit for someone that wants to open a business downtown, where they can get grant money, they can get low interest rate financing, they can get new market tax credits, they can get low income housing tax credits, which are for residential. There's lots of programs out there, but it takes expertise to be able to provide those types of options to give people something that they can use to help redevelop some of these properties. So we've already started that process. We're going to get into it with both feet. And you're right, it's not all about the city. The local private sector or out of state or whatever, they have to contribute their fair share.
Sure.
We walked Interbeatty Street a couple of weeks ago and met with a bunch of these new bar owners and asked them, the street needed to be cleaned up. I'm not going to point fingers. And I asked them, would you guys throw in $400 or $500 a month just to pressure wash the sidewalks? Yeah, we'll pitch in, we'll help out to improve our storefronts, improve the street, and if we can just build on that, we can't expect this, the city to do everything.
No, the city can't.
But the city already has a plan where
Well-
they'll put 50% of whatever you want to spend, they'll match this, but the property owners don't want to put anything.
There's
There's
a lot
another-
going on.
Well,
Yes.
yeah, it's, I say this again, I've said it before and I'll say it again, Laredo's just a different place. The people, geography is just different.
We don't have to be though.
What? No, well, we should
You
embrace
know
our,
what's that?
wait, let me finish.
Go ahead.
We can embrace our differences, we can embrace the fact that we're different, right? Like, it's part of, and that was gonna be part 2 of what I wanna talk to you about, was the Prop B stuff, right?
Yeah.
My experience in Laredo as an adult is fairly limited because I left when I was 18, came back when I was 34. But since then, some of the things that I've noticed, which haven't changed when I was 18, is that, again, Laredo is different. We need to explain to Laredoans who may have a certain view of how Laredo is or should be, how this is going to benefit them, not just personally, but generally, right? And so, as an example, I always get the stupid acronym wrong, but that MMD or the
Municipal Management District.
Yeah, I thought that was a brilliant idea. However, I believe whoever was in charge, I have some ideas, I don't want to point some fingers. Not y'all, no, but just to repeat your phrase. May not have understood how to get something like that across to the people of Laredo.
How to sell it.
How to sell it.
Yes.
And
To
so
get
the
buy-in.
reason-
To get buy-in.
To get buy-in.
Yeah.
And so Prop B to me is so important, and I wrote down here, coalition of groups. Who do we have to talk to? Because Laredo by nature is suspicious. For lots of reasons, many reasons that include its history. And so I know you guys have thought of that, but some of the thoughts that I have for my ideas about Laredo, I'm starting to get coalitions of groups before I even propose it to anybody. Because if you don't have that support, you're gonna have the rumors, you're gonna have
Yeah.
the whatever. Like as an example, which is a terrible example, because I think Move Laredo Forward was a little too aggressive in wanting to change the structure of the governance. But I think they had a good idea,
Yeah.
but again, I don't think they got the right
It's
people.
too at large as opposed to.
Exactly, that would work, that would
Okay,
work.
let me ask you a question.
Sure.
Where'd you go to law school?
UH,
How long did you live in Houston?
11 years.
You saw a different, how many kids do you think have ever been further north than that Border Patrol checkpoint here in Laredo?
Well, again, I'm saying.
And that's,
it's-
and that's, our-
no,
and that's what's sad.
No, and that's part of why I say Laredo's different, in a way. I have friends, I went to Trinity, I went to UH, I've been fortunate to be able to travel lots of places, have friends all over the country.
That's an
And the
education.
world, well, part of it, yes, and opportunity. But as an example, I have friends who were born and raised in Houston and couldn't wait to leave. We always complain about like the brain drain here. It's not about where we are, it's about kids just wanting to go somewhere else. That's all it is. It's not necessarily Laredo, it's not Laredo's fault. However,
No, it's not.
I was talking to this girl recently, and she told me, I've never been past San Antonio as a 42-year-old. And I said, are you kidding? I guess we're not talking anymore, because I have nothing in common with you, And so but that again, isn't necessarily education, it might be opportunity, it might be just the
So how do
way
you
of
get
life.
past La Migra? No.
So the way, no, she's citizens, but anyway, I have recently started to joke that Laredo is like that place in Oh Brother, Where Art Thou? Where he stops to go get supplies. And the guy says, well, it's gonna take 2 weeks to get a part for the car, or 2 weeks to get, hair gel. Have y'all seen Oh Brother, Where Art Thou, I guess? I hope. And he said, well, isn't this place a geographical audit?
Yeah,
2 weeks from everywhere. And I figure that's what Laredo
By the
is,
same
right?
token,
Yeah.
if you want to cross trade and nobody does it better than you.
Oh, no, I agree.
In other words, everybody envies, the valley, they envy.
El Paso, but we're unique again,
We
geographically.
got more warehouses than from San Antonio, Ralston, all of them put together.
So whatever I can do to help you all,
Don't worry.
you let me know.
Yeah, and to your point of building a coalition,
Sorry.
It's okay.
and obviously our presentation here is an official one.
Yes.
But there will be a push to get that campaign.
Like town
to
hall.
have to- Yeah.
Central Laredo.
And also stakeholder groups, because I think a lot of, just like you all are economic development centric, there's folks that are, there's a lot going on in downtown, and there's, I think we listed, or we generated a list internally, there's like 30 different groups or organizations that are operating in downtown, conducting some sort of business, whether you're a nonprofit, a bank, and you're downtown. So we're gonna reach out to those and get in front of them.
All the rotaries, I mean, we can
Yeah.
get it before the.
I know.
We got a long list,
There's another rotary.
but that's what we have to do.
Yeah.
So, we're gonna roll out our campaign, it'll start kind of a soft rollout next week with the Jamboozy.
Nice.
It's El Centro C. You're gonna start seeing that.
You were gonna laugh.
We had a good
But
turnout.
I would
at the
target not just the
Yeah,
people
at
that
the
you
mall
want
where Gary's
on your
going.
side, but the people even that might not be on your side.
That's correct.
Because.
We've had a
they're
few of
gonna-
those meetings.
I know.
You were gonna say something.
Sorry.
No, I was saying that we had a really good group at the mall,
At the outlet
last
mall.
week or something
Larry's
like that.
going.
And I missed that. I was supposed to be there.
I was
Yes, I was there, it was a good turnout.
Yeah, so actually, we think that getting back with them, we don't have to reinvent the wheel. They got folks there,
Right.
let's just join them and
Yes.
get the word out, get the information out.
Can I put this
I think-
on social media?
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
I think for us also, we need to start looking as, you're gonna have the conference center, but we need to talk to Larry and their group, the Phallics. They got that huge building there on the corner. All the other people, Larry's
There's
got
stuff to be done with
a
it.
property. Everything around the plaza is, how could we develop it, that area, put shops and restaurants? I want to bring in, of course, Hank and
I'd like to know what Hank-
Louis Romano's, the people that are putting money on It Street, so, I mean, I can see sort of a Santa Fe where you have the conference center and people go out there, you get the feel, you know what, not this restaurant, but let's go to this one, this is real good, and you know what I mean? Okay, there's a bar here, I mean, that's what I visualize, maybe is this sort of.
That's what we need to visualize, that it can happen.
Yeah.
And like you said, one of them was just using it as,
Go ahead.
one of them was just using it as a warehouse, but they can just do so much to the front, they can keep it as a warehouse, but you said that,
Address the facade.
Yeah,
And
the
there's
facade,
facade
make it
plans.
appealing to the eye as you're walking by.
I'm trying
Things are falling
beautiful
apart, and it's not like
facades.
they don't have the money to
I'm
fix
trying to
it.
convince Larry and the
Yes.
Phallics. And we had the building
Well, we need
scheme.
to talk to.
I don't know what's gonna happen, but I know how to do it, I've done it before, to
Well,
do
let us
a
know if we can
mixed-use
help you.
project
Yeah.
right there on that site, and have storefronts on the bottom and housing on top of
What?
it.
Yes.
4 or 5 stores.
Yeah, and y'all know,
That would be great.
this is,
I mean,
it's nice to talk about making things pretty or doing things for the betterment of downtown, but y'all know this, y'all are business people, most of the people in here are business people. It's about how we convince these people that they're gonna make money, right? How is this person that has a warehouse that's not using the thing, how is he gonna make money by improving his building?
And
I don't know that,
some
but there is a
But there is
way.
pride in
Some of the people that- I hate to say it, a businessman doesn't care about pride, they care about either their bottom line or how much they're saving.
And some of it is incentivized.
Joe,
Exactly.
I wanted to say that actually the meeting at the shops, I think that's a platform to
Yeah.
bring in those folks, and, because actually they're gonna have to recreate their model.
Yeah.
That old retail model.
It doesn't work.
Yes.
It's
Now,
not
just,
working.
one thing, and I had a friend of mine from Monterey, and I said, let's go to the shops. Hombre, ahí te cobran pa quedar, exactly what they didn't want to. No. We'll go to the mall, then we'll go to San Marcos, I promise you.
This thing is parking.
No, I'm just telling you that.
I agree, and
That has hurt us.
Yes, at the- yes.
But then there's people that park, I think.
Live in Houston for 11 years and try to go anywhere without paying a dollar.
Yeah, soaking all this in.
People take advantage of people that park, that leave their cars there 2-3 days, they go to Mexico, right?
Yeah.
There's two things when you talk about people being fickle in Laredo. Paying for parking. As petty or as minor as it seems, it is still something that I think
It's a
the
very
shops
big
is
deal.
dealing with that stigma. This parking on a slope parking
Amen.
lot. You have everybody parking up there and you have hundreds of spaces.
I know.
And it's.
They don't wanna walk uphill.
Well, it's, again, and
They
I
want
was,
to
I
take the
was,
stairs, hey, we took the stairs, I think I already followed, going up
I
the
was-
stairs.
There's a reason for that, John, you're right.
I was,
I
again,
never
and
take the
I think I
elevator.
started.
Everybody followed me on the stairs.
I
When we're
started,
coming up?
I started my comments with saying Laredo's just a different place.
And he's right back to that.
I'm right back to that.
I took you back there too.
Right, with this, which is, as I was at a meeting on Tuesday with a bunch of prominent business people who brought this up. And I talked to them about the city's plans on developing the
The outlet shops part?
convention center.
Oh, the convention center came
And,
up. Okay.
and so then downtown generally came up, and then usually it was, well, it's too far away or whatever. But when you do a little bit of digging, it's just that. It's a stigma. It's people in Laredo thinking downtown's too far. No, it's not. It's just inconvenient. Well, I don't want to be inconvenienced because there's a lot of traffic. Well, then you don't really want to go.
It's 10 minutes from the Del Mar.
Yes, sir.
I
Yes,
know,
10
I'm telling
minutes.
you, I'm telling you, I know. My favorite part of living in Laredo again is when people tell me, I don't want to go to HB Plus because it's too far away. I'm like, it's 4 exits away. I lived in Houston for 11 years. We've lived all over the place, right? I took 13 exits before I got to work every single day. This is, but how, again, as I told the people on Tuesday, same people, I was having this conversation with them, and I told them a little bit like, hey, maybe we need to think a little bit differently, which is, this is our reality. We can't move downtown from where it is and put it over by the LEA. We can't change the fact that 35 is where it is, and we can't change the fact that we're bordered by the river, right? And we can't change the
One
fact
of those
that retail
things
is
are great things to be, you know?
Oh, I agree, 100%, but as our reality, how do we deal with our reality, right?
Yeah.
The reality, Joe, like before, think about it.
I'm not gonna-
Most of us, where would we go party in the weekends? We go to Nuevo Laredo, it's twice as far. So, I mean, and you had mentioned, Bill, about
You want me
when
to go
Nuevo
get
Laredo,
that?
well, you don't need to,
Are you sure?
why don't you bring a lot of
This is
those
not gonna make it.
restaurants here?
So,
I mean, we have something similar on Springfield, right? I mean, how many of those places are restaurants? So
I mean,
why can't you
we
have
have-
them at the conference center?
We have a great downtown. It's the property owners that need to do something about their
Well,
property.
you know what the city of San Antonio did?
You know,
That's a
They
very
That's
good
Henry
point.
Cisneros.
They passed an ordinance,
same.
You hear
and,
this, Martin?
and they passed an ordinance because they were having the same problem,
Right.
vacant
And-
tax.
huh?
A vacancy
A
tax.
vacancy tax. And if you didn't get your property, at least the facade, cleaned
Yes.
up, straightened up, then they started hitting you with significant fines.
That's what we should
And,
do.
and property tax
Brilliant.
increases.
Yes, yes.
And made a big difference.
Come up.
Well,
And it
and,
would
but
give, to
that's,
give some pride on your own property. I mean, who doesn't want to fix their own, make their
No,
property?
and there are facade grants.
They are, the city
They're
already
not
has it
easy
in
though,
place.
John. It's-
Well, I mean, but then somebody needs to facilitate, somebody needs to make
It's,
it easy.
you know, it really, I was out last night, John. There's a new venue, Ethos.
yeah, I hear it's good.
They had
Ethos.
close to 400 people there
Wow,
last weekend is what they told me.
Wow.
awesome.
The where, what is it?
Ethos,
Ethos.
Ethos Live.
So
It's
slowly
trying to
and
be
surely,
Stubbs-ish in
you're
Austin.
seeing
Oh, cool.
some of these property owners now opening up to other types of business models.
Interesting.
Well, we got the Plaza Theater, that's gonna change. I think the federal courthouse is looking at maybe putting it for nonprofits, you know, so, but it's not gonna happen by itself. We gotta work on it. We gotta, like the business owners, well, we gotta have the tax incentives. We have the NEZs, we got the TERSs, we need to incentivize, and we need to also be close to like the Hank Sames and those. They're gonna complain, they're gonna, But you gotta give it to them, they put their money in there, and you gotta tell them, hey, we're with you, we wanna help you, how can we help?
I know how much Hank put in, he put in.
So
Well,
anyway,
what he put in it is not as troubling to him as his operating losses. You know, you can spend too much, a lot, on the capital end of it,
You
but
still
when
have
things
it.
start going south is when you have to provide a check every month to keep the building
well,
up.
like right now, he doesn't have lunch anymore, I don't even think dinner.
Why?
Just Thursday, Friday, and
Why is
Saturday.
it, any reason why he's lost his traffic?
Some of it is parking, some of it is, and it's a,
The newness wore off, I don't know, I'm gonna spend some more time with him. We didn't have a whole lot of time last
Good
time.
Part of it is traffic, not parking.
Parking was a good part, for lunch purposes, at least in my experience,
Well,
is that it was not the best timely service. And so that's okay when you're doing dinner and doing leisurely stuff, but when you need to be in and out in 30, 45 minutes, that makes it really tough to go.
One of the most popular things at La Posada is the
The buffet.
Mexican buffet.
Yeah.
You're in and out.
You can get in there
You know.
That's exactly
and
right.
get, it's good food, get
We
it
tried
and
a
go.
buffet concept, it was Tuesdays.
yeah, no,
That was
it
always
was
good
packed,
food.
he was packed when he had the buffet.
Maybe-
I went one day, I thought it was a buffet.
Doesn't he have a buffet on
I've
Sundays
never
that's
been-
good?
Yeah,
It's
brunch.
a
A
brunch.
brunch, is that, have you been to that?
I've not been to the Sunday one.
So I think we will
Used
see
to
a
go
new
to the
test
Tuesday
for,
ones.
for Siete Banderas with these new bars. There's about 4 to 5 coming
And there's no
in the
food.
next 60 days. So his evenings should look better, his late evenings, if they're open up for dinner, late dinner, so.
And you start getting a lot of the young crowd. Where does the young, well, I'm not anywhere. Where does the young
Where do I
crowd
go? Where do I go?
Yeah, I mean, they used to be there at Springfield, right? I mean, where do they go?
Joey, can you answer that question?
Yeah, you're the.
Man, I'm 41.
I got a 4-year-old
You're the youngest one here, so that's right.
We all would go across, maybe you're too young, Joey, but.
No, all right.
Where do they hang out these
The
days?
beer gardens is what's.
Yeah, the beer
popular right
gardens
now.
are popular these days.
So where is that one down?
There's a
Well, there's two now. There's Pan American, which is where the old one used to be, and then now the one that's over there in front of the federal court.
Some people would complain on Springfield because there was always a bunch of,
I saw
The
a
kids
grand
need to be
opening
somewhere.
for next week,
I have ideas, but I just don't have any money.
the
So,
downtown beer garden.
what are you
The
gonna do?
beer party.
I think they're
And I always
calling
hate going to the same people,
No.
because the same people
the
always
Pan
quote the
American
same
is
money.
See, but she
I-
said just out of her own money.
I've heard
To
that it's
revive
doing
it.
well.
Which
Okay,
one?
well, that's good. The Pan American.
Pan American
They both
Courts.
See, that's good. See.
And where's the Pan American?
On San
San
Bernardo,
Bernardo?
at the Pan American Hotel.
See,
across the
yeah.
street from-
Pan
and
American
there's a lot of shops over
I
there.
figured you'd know where that is.
I know exactly where, but I used to, Pan American?
Yeah.
Oh, I can tell you, I can take you right now.
The other thing, there's a lot, there's Vegas shops, there's all these Laredo import shops. A lot of those great shops that you find stuff that you don't find anywhere else. Why not incentivize and bring them on Iturbide or around the plaza?
I think with this roundtable, John, I think we'll find that we'll have an alliance that will help us break through that
Yeah.
old model of retail and start creeping further into
How?
downtown.
I think for the proposition, we just need to start promoting it more.
I wonder how the
The city
city
cannot
councilmen
advocate,
that are around
we
this
can
area
inform.
feel about it.
Right, but we can.
You can, the
Yes,
council
our
members
partner
can, the
can
mayor
advocate.
can, and we can.
Yes,
You
yes.
can require, no.
How much can we share at this point with this committee in terms of the campaign? Do we have some?
You can share all you want. Yeah, it's just Martina and I have to
Okay,
be,
so we
we
will
have to be
be,
your informative
But Martin writes down
anchor.
stuff. Right?
we will provide all the tools
Yes.
from creative tools, we'll have a microsite up hopefully by September 7th before Jambuzi. You will see the branding of El Centro C, which is a campaign theme. You will see it at Jambuzi, and it will supply the community, the information. It'll be, what we gave you today is a lot of technical information. Our bullets will be much more focused and much more local too, in terms of the impact.
On Facebook. Thank you, Mesita Martin, for your endorsement of it. I'm sorry.
Thank you for unveiling El Centro C campaign.
aren't we using some of the same colors as her jacket?
She's wearing.
Yes,
We're wearing campaign
She
colors.
doesn't know that yet, because
She
she's
doesn't
not
know.
involved, but yeah. Yeah, so yeah,
Very
we're,
good.
yeah, I hope it was,
Hope it was
Now we all need to
informative.
get back
If
to
you're
work.
interested in coming and meet with the guys that I was meeting on Tuesday.
Absolutely.
let me know.
Absolutely.
Let me know.
I tried to pull the pro forma off. my
This
email,
wasn't
but I
in some
couldn't.
bar or
Almost like
anything, was it,
Baltimore.
Joe?
Danny's.
Okay.
So, I guess.
Well, with
Sure.
that be, I know it's getting late, and thank you all very much.
No, it's Friday.
That was good.
Thanks for your.
If you want to do
Holiday weekend.
It's a double trouble.
Yeah.
If you want to do 1:30 from now on, that means I don't have to go back to work until my boss. I'm just kidding. Be like, oh man, it ran late, sorry. No reason for me to go for an hour.
Don't adjourn.
And on Fridays.
Right, that's what I'm saying.
Wait, Martin, question, on Bartlett, I mean, that street, Bartlett from
I will
Fenwick
appreciate
all the way to the bridge, there's a lot of,
Martin's stretching it off.
I mean, there's some
Oh, yeah, we need to stop
brush
for
that's
this.
6